Warning: the following contains explicit language and subject matter that may not be suitable for younger listeners, church folk, and people who enjoy kale smoothies.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to A Pod Amongst Men. I'm your host, Steve B., and this is Coffee Break Conversations for the 21st Century. First note, bit of housekeeping. Yeah, sorry we missed a week last week. It's, life has a tendency to get in the way. But we're here, so, stick with us. Thanks for sticking with us if you already have. Anyway, plowing ahead. My guest today is a returning guest, Retro B. He is one of the one half of the Popscast podcast on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts. He came back and he's having a chat with me today. So without further ado, here it is. I watched this documentary on Netflix, I guess like 2 weeks ago. It's called Bully, and it literally just follows around these kids from different schools. I mean, it just so happens a lot of them are in either the South or the Midwest, so I think that has a little something to do with it. But it was a lesbian girl. Like, they followed her around, and it's just like the shit that was going on. They followed this little kid. He was born prematurely, so he looked a little funny.
Off, yeah.
Yeah, and it literally followed them on like the school bus and like through school and stuff. And just to watch these kids, like the way they get treated and the shit they had to deal with. And it made me think about when I was young and the
I'm
stuff.
Sure that didn't help, having the camera crew with them following around like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Well, they did it in a way where it didn't look like they were specifically following that one particular kid.
Okay.
So they made it just like they were just filming something for the school, and all the kids thought that they were,
they were the subject.
So nobody realized, that they were getting singled out.
Oh, dude, hold on 1 second. I got something for you to add to the ambiance. Last time you showed out with your background. I gotta put something up there, man.
Oh, I love it.
A little fake ass guitar for you.
What is that? What is that? An Ibanez right there? I can't tell.
That's bullying in general, man. I think the Midwest I never knew was like racist and fucked up, because you always hear about like Midwest nice. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, they're just kind of nice. The South, everyone kind of has that stigma where they're just like, oh, they're just mean to people of color in general or whatever. But it's interesting you say that, just because like bullying might just be different in different parts of the country. I'm sure it's the same a lot in a lot of places, but it's also different. So that's wild that, first of all, even these days, if you're of the LGBT plus community, like, you're probably going to get bullied regardless. And then if you look funny, also, that's messed up too, that people are going to pick on you.
It was fucked up what happened to that girl. I guess it was in high school, and she was even getting it from the teachers.
What?
And then
was she in the South?
Yeah, like the teachers would like make these like weird passive aggressive comments talking about how, like, it is a sin. And, like, this isn't a Catholic school. Like, they'll burn in hell for sure. Yeah, there's no question about that. I'm probably not getting the quote right, but it was like crazy shit like that. And I was just watching it and just seeing how helpless these parents felt, because they would do everything they're supposed to do. They go to the school, they go up the ladder, they talk to the superintendent, they do all this stuff, and just every step of the way, they're just like the administrations are just like, what do you want us to do?
No. Oh, well, sorry.
What do you want us to do?
Hammering.
What do you think? You think we work here? You think we're in charge of the kids? We're not in charge of nothing. We don't know anything. But it's totally trash. But just watching it and just feeling like that frustration, because like my son he's going to be 10 in a couple months, but he's short for his age.
Right.
Short family. I'm short. His mom's short. We're all short. But I get anxiety for him. Like, I see him out there, and he's such a friendly kid, and he goes and plays, and he loves to just run and climb and shit. And just seeing him next to some of the other kids and seeing like the height difference and stuff, it gives me anxiety. I'm thinking like, when's it going to start? When are they going to start picking on this kid?
Far he hasn't been like bullied a lot or at all amongst his like peers.
Well, he told me that, and this is something I've heard since he was really young. And I don't think it's something that happens so much here in New Jersey, but more before they moved up here when they lived in Miami. he asked me, he's like, "Do I have elf ears?" I'm like, "Do you have elf
Random.
ears?" And then, yeah, but like his mom told me, she's like, "Yeah, I think somebody at school was saying that to him." But this is going back to like preschool.
Oh, okay.
And I think it just, for whatever reason, it must have stuck with him because I haven't heard really anything about it here until like, I think a week
That might have been
ago.
his only
He
experience.
said, "Yeah, I know."
Like, thus far. And even then in preschool, I'm not sure if that's bullying. I mean, maybe it is, but it could just be like kids like, hey, like your ears are kind of pointy. Do you have elf ears? Rather than trying to malicious intent.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Because I mean, preschool's what, like 4 years old? Something like that.
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
knows? But there are
Four
some
and five.
shitty kids at 4 years old too. Who am I kidding? You know?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I had a bunch of stats that I had found, so I'll just kind of like throw them in as we're moving through the topics. But the first one was that 1 in 5 kids between the ages of 12 and 18 report having been bullied. So 1 in 5. That's. I mean, it doesn't seem as high as I would have expected it.
Well.
But
what was the definition behind it? You're a numbers guy too, which is awesome because I love the fact that you put stuff on your Instagram like, hey man, this shit is real. Like whatever you're talking about, like, no, this is real. This is actually going on because, you know, a lot of people kind of tend to gaslight even men. You know, obviously it happens. Men tend to gaslight women a lot because they're own insecurities or whatever, but gaslighting happens in general a lot. And the fact that you're bringing up the numbers is great. But even then, like when you say that, like what do they qualify as bullying?
So that's the thing. Most of the bullying that is reported was either verbal or online. Like it was a relatively smaller percentage that was regarded as physical. And I think that is the that's the rub, because people just say bullying, you think, oh, this, you know, some big kid gonna punch you in the teeth and steal your lunch money. But all right, let me regroup. What it usually is just, you know, verbal attacks. It's, you know, making fun of somebody, harassment, you know, and now especially with social media, it's online. So you can't just escape it when school's over. You go home and it's still coming in, you know, whether it's on Instagram or whatever the kid, or TikTok now. And I've definitely had my own experiences with it. And it was the same thing. I wasn't like beat up. Like I never really had fights, but it was always the verbal abuse. And the crazy thing is where it comes from, because you don't have to be bigger than someone to make fun of them and make them feel like they're, you know, an inch tall. Did you ever have anything like that?
I was born and raised an Asian kid in the burbs for the most part. There wasn't a lot of other Asian kids, but thankfully, some of it was racist. When I was growing up, it wasn't. I mean, who knows? I can't really say for sure. I was like, I don't think it was that bad, right? Because they just like, oh, slant eyes and this, that, and the third. I'm like, okay. After a while, I'm like, this shit just gets tired, and I get used to it. Elementary, I think the most of it happened probably in elementary and middle school, and then things kind of changed in high school. Not that I wasn't a popular kid by any stretch of the imagination. I think I just knew enough people from different groups where they just kind of stopped fucking with me, or they didn't fuck with me. And then the people that I did hang out with were like low-key dirtbags. There's like they would fight after school if it came down to it. So I didn't get picked on too much. The typical freshman stuff, at least for us in high school, is like, okay, well they'll throw you in the trash can your first day of school if you're a freshman or something like that. Like a little bit of freshman hazing.
Yeah. Do they really do that?
Like one of my this bullying, I don't think it was actually bullying. It was just a kid being good natured because he was my friend's older brother. He kind of picked me up and like folded me and like put me ass first in the trash can. There was nothing in the trash can. Like I was like struggling to get out like a turtle. But outside of that, it wasn't too bad. I was a small kid too. Growing up, I think elementary school, I don't remember a whole lot. Because I think where I lived too, there wasn't overwhelmingly one kind. There one person from one sort of demographic. You know, they have a fair amount of white kids, decent amount of black and brown kids, and you know, like sprinkling Asian kids. So that wasn't that bad. And in all honesty, I did get bullied. I would say the normal amount, which is kind of surprising now that I look at it. It's like, damn, I could have gotten, you know, bullied a lot more. There's like instances here and there where like kids like step on my sneakers or something like that. And then the message I got at home was so different because, I think we spoke about before. My dad's a martial artist and he taught me martial arts. My mom, my whole family did martial arts basically, but my mom was just like, no, don't use it at school. Just take it. These kids, they're just being stupid kids or whatever. So for me, it was I think the difference between the two. Like my mom would say that, and my dad would be like, if you get into a fight, don't come home if you lose. I'm just like, dude, I'm like a tiny, skinny ass Asian kid. Like, what do you want me to do? And there's like 3 or 4 kids trying to gang up on me. He's like, I don't care. He's like, find a way to win, but don't come home or don't talk to me about it if you don't win.
What do? You go to school with like a sleeping bag and a little stick and bindle?
Just in case.
I don't know what's going to happen.
Or
I don't know how many there's going to be.
Shit made out of soap or something like that. Hiding something in my elbow. I don't know, dude. Like, he was just tough like that. One of those tough, hard-nosed guys. And I'm not sure if he meant it, but I got into a few scraps in school. Just, not won some. I would say like it got broken up before anything like big happened, which is how it happens most of the time. Lost a few. So growing up, I think it was okay. But what's interesting too is what you tell me is like how people are getting bullied now. Like we didn't have social media back then. It's so much worse now. Like I'd rather take getting thrown, thrown in the trash can or, like someone stepping on my sneakers or something like that. Even as a sneakerhead, I'd rather have someone do that than just try to go after you or like find out where you live or find out who your parents are using the internet.
Yeah,
it's
the verbal's
like,
bad,
I hear
man.
about like it's.
I'd much rather take a swift kick to the nuts.
So
than
what's
have to
wild
deal
is
with
that my wife, she actually
24/7.
works for a company that it sounds fucked up. It's monitoring software for schools, and it helps to keep kids on track with their schooling. So when the schools give out like Chromebooks and stuff like that for the kids to take home or whatever, there's like a software on it and be like, hey, make sure you're not looking at TNA or other things. And there was an aspect of it that had to deal with self-harm. And then it just kind of opened up a whole can of worms because, of course, she gets some light shit on her in regards to what all these kids have to go through. And there's like cases of just kids committing suicide because other kids are just being like fucked up. I was like, my thing is like, dude, I'd much rather be like, all right, you fight typically. If you fight a bully, even if you lose or get your ass kicked, the bully's gonna be like, oh, this fucker fights. Like, I might say something to him or her, or them, but like not kind of go after him anymore because like, all right, I don't want those problems. It's easier for me to just punk these other kids as opposed to somebody who you don't even know, right? Because it could be anonymous, just saying like, hey, this person's fat, this person's this person's that. Like that's so scary to me, and even scarier to me, I think. And this is probably my own fucked up thinking that my firstborn's my daughter. Thinking about all the extra shit women have to deal with growing up and being a woman of color. Thankfully, where we live and where we plan to move to, pretty diverse. But there's still going to be some things where people are going to just find a way to be shitty, even as kids. And kids are fucking inventive, and they will be even more inventive about finding ways to be an asshole to you. So, like, I worry about that constantly, and I'm.
Well, I don't want to give kids too much credit. I mean, they are inventive in ways to be shitty, but in terms of like sometimes their attacks, like they get a little used up, and everything you see is just like, oh, it's gay, bro, fucking gay. It's gay.
My wife and I spoke about that a lot because we both agree. I was like, look, man, if there's, especially now in this climate, I was like, America hates women. In my opinion, America hates women. I think America especially hates women of color. So it's going to be hard for her. So right now, now that I have her at home, I am hard on her. And I try to toughen her up and stuff like that. But when it comes to I know we're probably jumping ahead a little bit, but when it comes to like my kid defending herself, it's just like, no, my kid's going to learn how to fight because I'm a martial artist. Like everyone in my family is going to learn how to throw hands and defend themselves. And my wife was just like, all right, well, here's the caveat. I want her also to talk a good game. She's like, I want her to also be like, nah, like she can talk shit too. And roast you. So if it comes to that,
now that's what I want to talk about. The roasting, because with that, when it comes to the verbal stuff, like just like talking shit, and especially I don't know if you ever took the bus when you were a kid. Everybody's on the it's just like I mean, I hate to use the term jungle, but it's just like, it's just predators everywhere. You know what I mean? Everybody's looking
like
to just not be the prey. So, yeah. What I noticed when I was coming up is that you don't have to be, like I said, you don't have to be some big kid, some big fucking corn-fed motherfucker to be a bully. Like, you can be. I've had girls that roasted me worse than anyone I've ever met in my life, brutal. And they were like 4 feet tall. And not only is it bad enough you're getting the piss ripped out of you, but it's by somebody who, like, you could literally pick up with one hand and place on a shelf.
Like, oh damn.
So it's. Well, no, not even that. Like, I had this one girl that was on my bus, and I hated her guts. I hated. I do.
I'm gonna put her out there.
Do, and I'm not gonna say it. But I'm gonna say this: she could suck 15 dicks in hell. Okay, so fuck her. But she would just would roast me relentlessly, and I don't know why. I don't know what I did. Maybe I was just an easy target, and I had that thing where. Like, I would think of the best comebacks.
That's always the worst. And then she would keep it fresh.
Yeah.
So you couldn't go back to it. She knew. Master game plan.
Yeah.
Kudos to her, but also fuck her too. Like, I'm with you on that. Yeah, no, like, seriously, fuck her. Fuck her, she should be fucked and driven across the land, But, it's stuff like that. It's like the verbal part of it kind of levels the playing field. So you could be. Yeah.
And not everybody is. Not everybody is. Like, I'm good sometimes, but if you hit me with a good one and catch me off guard, then I'm on tilt, and then I'm just too pissed off, and I can't think straight. Like, you know what? Thinking in the shower, throwing the shampoo. That's what I should have said.
I think I'm not sure if wittiness is like a learned. Wittiness, I'm sure, is a learned trait from home, right? And I talk a lot of shit.
Well, I think it's got to be more natural.
I think you can see.
You can't teach someone to be quick. You can
see it from your family, and then understand that is a form of communication, right? Because my dad, he talked shit, but it was mostly just like, "Yeah, I'm gonna kick your ass" type thing. It wasn't like like look at them fucking orthopedic church shoes, like nothing like that. Like, I learned how to do that from my other friends, and I talk a lot of shit now, like in a joking way, and like I can actually see my kid like picking up on my mannerisms, the stuff when I am talking shit. So she actually knows when I'm like playing with her and when I'm being serious, even if it's the same tone. So I think maybe it'll just make her more open to being like witty and talking shit, because like you said, the verbal part is it's the almighty equalizer, right? But at some point you kind of have to knuckle up, and it's also the interesting thing to me is. I know a lot of folks, like I got a lot of friends from the East Coast, the tri-state area and stuff like that. And all of them talk a lot of shit. And I always tell them, you guys talk so much shit. Is that just like an East Coast thing in general? Where you guys like, you have the normal amount of roasting and stuff like that. But then there's like just random dudes like walking by. Like if he gets too close, he's like, yo, suck my dick. Like, what are you doing? Like, dude, too close. Like.
Yeah, well, no, that's or like, you say that. That's all right. We're ready to fight.
Shit. I'm like, why?
We'll take this to the death.
For me, it's just the minute you say like, "What's up?" or like the minute you say like, the provocation is on a lower threshold here. Not saying that like we fight more or anything like that, but I think we just Angelinos kind of tend to talk a little less shit. You know what I mean? Well, we'll just like look and be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" or like, "Fuck out of here," like that to us. For a lot of Angelinos, like "fuck out of here" is like, okay, this is probably going to escalate to a fight, as opposed to like "fuck out of here" is just like someone's just walking by and they're not walking fast enough, or it's funny like "fuck out of here." Like for us, that's just like, no, we're going to escalate this into fisticuffs or something.
Well, with us here on the East Coast, it's definitely talking shit is almost a term of endearment, especially in my upbringing. I come from an Italian family. That's just kind of what we did. We're just constantly roasting each other. God. Colin Quinn, the comedian, had a whole bit about this. He did a stand-up special called The New York Story, and it basically goes through and talks about all the different types of cultures that makes New York, New York. And when they're talking about the Italians, it's like, when the kid starts to get older, the father just spends all his time roasting his son just because, now he's a little too big to fight him. So he's just got to, look at this half a meatball I got for his son. Look at this fucking shoot shot here. Hey, look at him washing the car. What the fuck's wrong with this kid? Hey, you missed the front bumper there, you half a momo, And they said half a momo. I don't know what that is to this day, but it's not the momo.
Dude, that's very
it's the fraction that's the insult.
Coasters, I don't get it. I just figure it might be the weather because we don't, we're a little more laid back out here, and maybe it could be population density.
No, it's definitely true because Jersey has the highest population density in the country,
like Manhattan or Brooklyn or whatever, just being like wild packed. And when I think of Jersey, I think of my friends that moved out there to be away from the city. So that's why I say that.
Well, the parts of Jersey that are really packed are the ones that are close to New York City. So it kind of Jersey City's right on the water, so it's right. That's where I work, and we're literally the only thing separating me from New York is the river. So you're right there. But yeah, that whole we went on a tangent a little bit here, the verbal stuff that always was my downfall because I would get
one of the things is like it's probably not the same anymore, but there was like rules and shit there was rules of engagement growing up for me, right? So for me, it's just like, all right, like for me personally, because there's always your mama jokes, but it's like for me, I was like, single mom. I was like, you talk shit about my mom, we fight. Like that's just it. It don't matter what you say, like we're fighting, even if it's just benign, like where they're like, oh, your mom, like they don't. There's nothing even attached to it, and I'm like, okay, we're fighting now. That was the trigger for me. For me, I think I'm just gonna tell my kid like, you can roast a kid for anything, but don't stoop to the level of like their race, their religion, whatever their preference is in terms of like attraction to others or anything like that, or like family. I was like, that to me is just like, that's kind of off limits, man. You could roast whatever they're wearing. You could roast how they do a certain thing. You could roast their grades, whatever, or like whatever you want to do. But when it comes to like disabilities and shit like that, like, man, I'm not cool with that. Like I'll probably.
Yeah. Well, that's when you become the asshole bully. Like, because that was always, the way we think of bullies, especially when it's represented in like movies and TV, is that's the guy who's the racist dude, or that's the dude making fun of the short kid and putting something on his head. Like sit down, let me dip my nachos. You know what I mean? Like that's the. I think you have a good approach there because you want to. Maybe nobody wants their kid to be a bully. I hope, but it's something about there's like especially when you're a kid, there's that natural pecking order. And nobody wants to be at the bottom. So some kids, they just figure if I direct it outward, it's not going to come back at me. And even if it might be an otherwise, at home, maybe a good kid, it's still like, it's almost based out of fear and insecurity. And that's usually the thing you see a lot with bullies is they're maybe something's wrong at home. There's something wrong internally, emotionally, or mentally. So they have to direct
myself here, but
direct
it's like
that
Breakfast
outward,
Club comes to mind. Because you see what comes up, and like a lot of these bullies have like fucked up it's not just like it's not just maybe either getting abused at home or something like that, socioeconomic status, a whole bunch of different things. The kid could be rich and just have an asshole dad like Cobra Kai. I don't know if you watched it, you know what I mean? Like it was like anything could be a trigger, and I want to make sure that my kid now she's kind of coming into her own personality, and she's a good kid. And I want to make sure I want to keep that up. And I was like, if you're going to roast somebody, make sure it's one, you got to make sure it's funny. You can be like, hey, like, sure, like, nah, just tell them, be like, you got your fucking little bullshit Walmart, your bullshit Walmart bargain bin shirt, like whatever you want to say, whatever you want to talk shit about, like, just be like, oh, you got the mismatched socks or whatever the hell you want to say to like kids. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you live in a hardware store? Why you always coming in smelling like cut keys? What's up with
that? Some inventive shit like that. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Like right now, I need a subject to work with. But I think that once you're like, once you're there, like once she's in it, like in the mix, I got to let her know too what it's like beforehand. Because I think a lot of parents out of fear don't tell their kids that, no, just be a good kid, And be like, nah, man, like I'm going to tell you what it is so you don't have to find out from somebody else. Kids are fucked up, or they can be fucked up. Kids are great. but they can be fucked up, and you got to prepare yourself. And how you prepare yourself is you kind of have to size up everybody you see that's a stranger. And even sometimes your friends might turn on you because they go to another group of friends and stuff like that. Because I think that shit is what happened to me. And I don't know if that's actually bullying, but like in high school, like my friends, some of my like closer friends, like they just didn't want to like fuck with me anymore. I was like, all right, well, I wish you would have told me something. That shit was like worse for me than someone just talking regular shit. The fact that you just kind of ghost me and then like don't want to hang out with me anymore, I was like, damn, that's no explanation.
Yeah. All of a sudden,
no
I'm
explanation,
not
nothing.
cool
I was
anymore.
like,
What did I do?
cool, like I guess, it is what it is. So that was kind of worse for me than the bullying shit. But bullying in general, she has to know what it's like. And even now, I think I being the paranoid dad, I think I see it. Like when she was in daycare, like kids will just kind of run by and she'll like kind of get like startled and like look at them or whatever, or she'll like kind of like back up, be like, oh, like I don't know what's going on here, and then I'll just tell her like, hey, none of that shit. Like you gotta step up and take what's yours. I'm like, dude, it's just kids running around. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're fucking 2.5. They're 2.5 years old or whatever. But it's just the paranoid mind of mine. Like I'd much rather tell her and show her these things so she knows rather than have her just be unprepared, even if it never happens, right? Because that's the hope. I know it's gonna happen, but even if it never happens, like cool. And also, if you're one of the popular kids or you happen to be blessed being like one of the kids that everyone likes and stuff like that, you got to make sure that you take care of other people too, because you don't know where other people are going to show up.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the big one. That's the big one. You want to teach your kids to be the protector. You want to be the one, if you see someone getting bullied, you stand up for them. You don't want to, I try to push that as much as possible, because I feel like there's so many times I've seen, whether in my own experience or just kind of witnessing, is that there was times when people were getting picked on or bullied, and it's nobody stepped in.
Bro. Yeah, and that shit
nobody
sticks
said
with
anything
you forever.
Yeah,
because that's what, like 30 years ago for me, and to me, it's not necessarily like you step in and fight. Like, no, you can. Most of the time, honestly, because I've done it a few times too. One of my best friends to this day, we like she would fight a lot, bro, because she had like something going on with her face. There's like some discoloring, like a melanin issue with her face when she was way younger. And the kids would be so fucked up to her, man. They'd be like, oh, erase her face, this, that, and the third. And she would just drop her shit and scrap. And she had hands. Like, I don't know where she got them from. I don't know if she watched like a lot of fucking Sugar Ray Leonard when she was a child or something like that. But she would fucking rock dudes like that were like almost twice her size. But because of that, she was always fighting. We lost touch. I shit you not. We lost touch for like 20 years. We were friends. We were in the how they have those stupid singing groups for the holidays and stuff like that in elementary school. Like there's still pictures of us in there. One day, like I'm at a club with my boy, and she's just like, "Oh, like is your name on the list?" Blah blah. Blah. I was like, "Yeah." So I give her my government name. She's like, "Yo, like this dude from Nessa Elementary School in Encino." I was like, or from Tarzana. I was like, who the fuck are you? And she's like, yo, you don't remember me? It's me. Da, da, da. I'm like, wow, it has been a long time. And like we just caught up from there. And then later she's just like, I'll never forget the time you stood up for me when those kids called me eraser faced, and like you stepped in. And it wasn't even like I didn't really like fucking make like a kung fu entrance, no shit like that, where I was just like, ah! Like I didn't kick down no walls like the fucking like the Kool-Aid man. Yeah.
He would walk in like Naruto.
Sasuke! Oh yeah! Like, it wasn't any of that. It was just like it literally was me like just be like, hey man, like that's fucked up, or like that, like knock it off, or I would just kind of like separate and be like, no, like that's just happened. So even small stuff like that, like it doesn't always have to escalate.
But that's the stuff that actually makes a difference, because one of the stats I was reading, they were saying that like even just like minor pushback, like or somebody stepping in to defend someone, all that stuff actually makes a legit difference, and it usually stops whatever incident is happening, whether someone's getting beat up or picked or made fun of. Like that shit actually matters. And I know there's nothing that hurts more than knowing that you could have helped someone out and you didn't.
It's still sticking with us,
right? That shit. Yeah, we carry it forever.
There's a couple kids that I know that I probably should have stepped in for, or at least said something like, "Hey man, this is fucked up," or someone else did, and I still remember that shit. Like one of the kids, one of the kids, like, we didn't know what it was back then, because autism, in the 80s, that shit wasn't really a thing for us. We didn't know what it was. They just, oh, you're slow, or whatever it was, right? That kid, yeah, like,
He's
that
just
kid ended
funny.
up committing suicide. He was a good kid, but people would make fun of him for whatever it was. And, like, I was kind of neutral. I wasn't necessarily his friend, but I would see him around. He was always nice to me. I was like, okay, cool. Like, what's up, man? And, I would see him get bullied from, like, a distance or whatever, and I wouldn't necessarily, like, stop it. I'd be like, damn, that's fucked up. And he would kind of, like, he would just kind of brush it off, because he would get it every day. Because when you do have autism back then, you can't really, things are just different for you, right? In general. So one day,
they're not known for being quick with the words.
He just stepped in front of a fucking train and, like, offed himself. And, like, that, man, that still sticks with me to this day. So I want to impress that upon both my kids now and tell them, like, dude, when you see stuff happening, just step in, man. And so this is one of the things I want to tell you, because both took the bus as kids. The funny thing for me was that either the mean girls or the mean guys or whatever, the guys that, like, typically guys or girls that didn't usually take the bus, like, their parents would take me up, but they were assholes in school. When they did have to take the bus, they would get bullied on the bus. And that shit was, I'm not going to lie, that shit was hilarious.
Well, no, there's certainly some pleasure in seeing a bully, go down. Or at least
and they couldn't do anything, because it's like, what, 30 kids? Because, like, the city buses would pick us up, and it was a city bus, but the bus route would start at our school. So it'd be like, and at least in junior high, there'd be like 30 kids. And then after that, it would pick up, like, people coming back from work or something like that. So then anytime we're, like, filing on those, it was just like prison, bro. Like, so it used to be called the Rapid Transit Department, I think. And then the acronym changed to the Rough, Tough, and Dangerous. And then because it was even from the burbs, man, because there are kids that would, like, we had an inner city schooling program. And I'm not sure if this was a thing for East Coasters as well, but, like, they wanted to try to integrate things because of the redlining and stuff like that was going on. They wanted to have some kids just get a better level of education. So they would have them come in, but sometimes when the kids would have to stay after school for something, they would take our bus, or they would just be like, I want to leave sooner, or I miss this bus, because it would leave right after school. So they'd wait 15, 20 minutes with us, kind of hang out, and take the bus all the way down, like, back to the hood, for lack of a better term. And those kids, nobody fucked with. Like, nobody. And the thing that's wild too is that they were the ones usually that would step in for the kids getting bullied too. They'd be like, hey man, like, because they'd be like, oh shit, that's the kid from such and such, his brother's a gangster, this, that, and the third. And all he would do is just be in the back of the bus, like, just putting his headphones on, like, rocking out to whatever he was listening to. And then, one specific instance that I remember was, remember when they used to make you take, like, eggs home to, like, act like it's a child, and, like, you have to take care of this egg, or you remember that shit? Okay.
I know of it. We did it a little differently in my school, but they gave us, like, an actual baby doll that had, like, a fucking it cried, and you had to put a little key in the back and turn it to, like, it would to make it stop. You have to hold it there for like 15 minutes.
That's way better than that stupid egg thing.
It was terrible.
Yeah, the egg was just
terrible. And of course, I found a way to cheat the system.
Man,
but I'm sorry, keep going.
Get it how you live. I'm not mad.
The little key that you put in the back, like, you just put it in and twist it, and you have to hold it, like, physically for like 15 minutes to make it stop. But the key comes on an elastic band, so you could put it around your wrist. So I found a way, because all the sensors in the baby were only in, like, the torso. There's nothing in the arms and legs. So, like, if you shook it too hard or something, it would cry, or you dropped it, it would cry. So I found a way to put the key in the back, twist it, bend the arm back, and hook the elastic band on the arm to hold it. And because there's no sensors, it didn't matter.
Chicken wing.
And that,
like, fucking, it works.
Listen, it worked,
Amazing,
and it saved me, a night of sleep.
In another life, my man, you're a fucking engineer. Sorry. You're an engineer, for sure.
Listen, I'm a very creative guy. I find very creative ways to solve problems. The problem is that in my line of work as an electrician, there's an electrical code, so you have to do things a certain way. Yeah, that gets me in trouble a lot of times.
Well, hey, you're one of the good guys.
All right. So anyway, I'm trying.
Yeah, like, so they were passing around the eggs, because, like, basically you would just empty out the egg so it wouldn't rot, and then you'd have to carry it around, make sure you didn't crush it. I was like, that's a softball assignment. And I remember, like, these kids were just, like, they would take it, the kid from the egg from the basket, and, like, started passing it around to people and everyone. And I could see, like, the girl just, like, after a while, she started getting desperate. Like, first it's like, okay, knock it off. And then she's like, oh shit, one of these assholes might actually like crush it. And then like, it's literally like one of those things where the alpha male, so to speak, was just like, hey man. And that's all he did. He's like, hey. And then everyone just put their head down, like, give it back to her. And that's, everyone thinks, and this is on another tangent, everyone thinks that like, if you're from a rough area, then you're rough and you're kind of an asshole too. And that's, to me, that hasn't been the case. The warmest, I hold like my friends from the hood and my family from like underserved communities and stuff like that are like the warmest, gentlest, kindest people I know. And it sucks that they get that because they're the ones that are like, they were the first anti-bullies that I met. It's all the kids from the burbs that were kind of fucked up. And I'm sure I did.
Oh, I've seen most of the bullies I've seen in my life came from good households and good neighborhoods. And like they're just entitled pieces of shit.
Yeah, and I think that's also another parenting thing too. It's just like, hey man, just because you have these things, because I grew up middle class. My wife did not, right? So I had a lot of things. Very Asian. I didn't have violin or cello lessons, so not that Asian, but I had tennis lessons on occasion.
Are you telling me that Yo-Yo Ma's not one of your personal heroes?
Sir, he is not. Michael Chang, however, big hero because he had his own sneaker.
Just let me just say this for the listeners: you guys know that this was all here before, so don't try to make this a racial thing, okay? I'm one of the good guys, okay? We bowed before the interview starts.
No,
I'm sorry.
Dude, I'm with it, man. But yeah, like I had a lot of things growing up, and my mom would always get on my case, and my oldest sister would always get on my case about how spoiled I was, and this, that, and the third. And it extended to when they met my wife. They're like, "Oh my God, he's so spoiled, this, that, and the third." And in a good way, that kind of stuck with me. It gave me a chip on my shoulder to where I would center myself all the time and understand that I had these things, even though I had a single mom and I was a latchkey kid, which now counts as abuse, but it is what it is. That I kind of knew my place. Like, all this shit can go away in a second, man. All these things that you have, that's nice house, whatever, like it can go away. And by proxy, my kid is going to have cousins and uncles and aunts and stuff like that don't have what she has. So I think when she sees that, it's going to automatically kind of humble her and center her and make sure that she doesn't be like, I got the newest PlayStation, suck my dick, like whatever, blah, blah, blah. She's not going to
eat shit, peasants.
Like pinkies up. Like she's not going to be, I hope she's not going to be like that. And even if she is, I want to make sure that she understands all this can be taken away in a second. Like there's nothing secure. I mean, job security is nice, right? But look at this year. Look what happened.
It's nice, but it's an illusion.
Exactly. Like you can stack your paper, you can do whatever you want, but guess what? Like stock markets crash, your investments go down the shitter. One bad move here and there that everyone says is a good thing. Next thing you know, why didn't you think of that? Well, I did, and it still fucked me. So all these things, like, it's just the life we live. Doesn't matter who you are. This is not a race thing to me. It's just like everyone's kind of precarious, and for the most of the people that I know, we're literally like probably 2 paychecks away from being like, oh, we're in deep shit, which is wild because I know some people that are.
I think that's the majority of people in the country.
Some of my friends are very well off, but it's just like, oh, after 2 paychecks of like not getting paid, like, oh fuck, like what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So centering your kids, I think, is going to be a key thing because I think communications have gotten better, and I want to give you a lot of credit for that too. Just communicating with your kids and being open and showing your own vulnerability too, I think is a good thing because I'm always going to be tough. I'm always going to be this. I'm always going to be that. Like that creates kind of a monster, right? To where like I'm going to, growing up, I didn't see that. So I'm going to end up hating it. And like, if I see it in other people, I'm going to point it out and be like, and like you said, like lowest common denominator, that's gay. Like, oh, you're crying because something happened. Oh, that's gay. You know what I mean? Like, I refuse to let that happen to my kid or let my kid do that to somebody else. And it's, I want my kid to see, like when dad's sad, when dad's doing this or that, she is too young to know when, so my mom passed away last year and like, she was too young to understand it, but she's old enough to ask about grandma. So I'll ask her and I'm sure she knows like, it's still pretty fresh. So I'm sure she knows like, like my face changes and stuff like that when she says these certain things, or if we're going through a tough time, because with our second kid, like the pregnancy it was not as bad as it could have been, but it wasn't easy either. So there were some really tough days. And even if because, the kid was with us since March. She's been with us since March. She hasn't been daycare since then. So I worry about the socialization aspect of that. But how, like, even then I'll have like a short temper with her sometimes and I'll yell at her, but it's important to also come back and be like, hey, I'm sorry I yelled at you. Daddy's just going through a tough time. Like, I have to tell, mommy can't help with certain things. So I got to pick up extra slack here and there. And even if she doesn't get it, like, I think just feeling that from your parent is good, right? Because if all I did was like,
well, you're setting an example. You're creating a model in her head for how an adult should behave, and how a father and a man in general should carry himself.
For me, I think even no matter what I was saying, she probably didn't recognize it, but the nonverbal stuff, right? The getting down on her level, looking her eye to eye, and like hugging her and kissing her and telling her she knows what I love you means. So like hugging her, kissing her, and apologizing and saying I'm sorry, I love you. I was just, I was short with you earlier. I think all that contributes to open much more open communication. I think would lead to us in general having kids that are more well adjusted, as opposed to other folks who even are contemporaries or even people younger than us are just like, well, I'm going to parent how I was parented. And I was like, I think that's when you get to dicey territory where you're just like, do as I say, not as I do. I'm not going to explain shit to you. This is whack.
And it's easy to fall into that. It's easy
because I said so.
All right. It's just when you're tired, it's like, listen, just do it. Just do it because I asked you to, and because I'm the one feeding you, I'm the one taking care of you. Just do what I say. Before we get too far off topic here, there's two things I want to make sure that we cover before this is over. The first thing, and it's something I've thought about because I've thought about how much we want to make like a really comfortable life for our kids. We want our kids to have a better life than us. But at the same time, if we are, say you're a person who feels good about themselves, you're confident, you're pretty mentally healthy, you know what I mean? Don't you feel like the struggles that you went through in your life are part of what shaped you and part of what taught you and helped you grow as a human being? Because I always wonder, like, how comfortable do I want my kid to be? I don't want them to be spoiled and entitled. I don't want them to not appreciate things. I want them to have a little bit of adversity.
Dude, so me and my wife actually argue about this a lot, because
hang on, before you go, the reason I brought that up is because it's like bullying is it's been around forever, for as long as humans have been around, and it's an obstacle, it's an adversity that kids have to go through.
Iron Man,
and exactly, and it builds character sometimes when you learn to deal with those things, and it teaches you to be able to rely on yourself, and you have a sense of self-confidence if you're able to overcome it or to work through it, because not everybody is, and that's the rub. So, sorry, continue.
You're good. So I think there's a duality to that mindset, right? I think a lot of parents, as they give their kids these things that they never had, which God, Kennedy has it now, man. She's got fucking like no lie. She's probably got, just in the size she's in now, like 8-9 pairs of sneakers. And every time I buy them, I'm like, this spoiled piece of shit. But I was like, man, look, she's gonna look so good in these damn shoes, or whatever. Like, But
you get mad at them. Like, you don't appreciate anything, and then the next day you're out buying them. So, hey,
so that's the duality. But when I get older too, like I'm not one for so. As she gets older in life, I refuse to put her in any sort of league or competition where they do participation trophies. You got to know what it's like to win and lose. You just have to.
Thank God.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not one of those, like helicopter. I hope I'm not going to be one of those helicopter dads. I'm not yet. Where it's just like, you got to do everything this way, that way. It's like, dude, whatever you want to do. If you show a passion for it, I'm behind you 110%. However, I'm not going to let you quit mid-season because you don't like that shit. You're going to finish the fucking season out because I already paid for it, and you're going to move on from there. And if you really hate it the next, all right, like let's talk about it. Why do you hate it? Is there a bully? Is there a kid that's bigger that's picking on you? Is the coach being a bully or whatever? Like, what is it? Or what? Even if it's academic or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, you're gonna stick it out. You have to know. To me, bullying adds to grit. And if you remove certain aspects of what it is to have grit, right? So when I was younger, I think my grit, so to speak, came from I was the only kid of the house at the time because I was the youngest. So my mom would rely on me on stuff, and my parents divorced. They split very young when I was very young. When I was 9, not very young, I was 9, and at that point I was just like, all right, well, I gotta do dishes, I gotta learn how to cook, I gotta do laundry, I gotta take the bus, walk myself home from school, stuff like that. Like, and thankfully it was a pretty safe neighborhood back then. But all these things that my kid isn't going to have, I would speak to my wife and be like, hey, when she gets to like college, like, nah, fuck that. You're going to work. Like, I'm not going to, like, one thing we did agree on is like, we're not going to tell her that we have a college fund for her. Whatever she wants to do, if it's something else that's not college, if she wants to go to a trade school, if she wants to invest in her own business or something like that, be like, yo, show me the business plan. If it looks good, boom, here's money. If not, take her ass to college. But even then, I told her, I was like, if she goes to college, like, I'm not gonna. If she decides she wants to go to college, I'm not gonna give her this money up front. I'm gonna make her work. And she's like, that's fucked up, because then you're taking away potentially from her studies. You're adding stress, this, that, and the third. And my thing is, her thing is, she doesn't want to manufacture obstacles. It's like, if we can pay for it, then we should do it. And for me, I was just like, well, if she knows that she has this golden parachute, so to speak, she's gonna.
It kind of takes away any sense of urgency.
She might be one of these entitled assholes that's just like, oh, whatever. Because I had a friend like that in college. Like, he would complain. This is back in '99, so our freshman year, he would complain that he got only $1,000 in allowance a month, not counting
$1,000 a month.
Yes, 1,000. Both his parents were fucking engineers, and he's just like, man, I'm fucking getting $1,000 a month. He's the only dude in school that I knew had a car, and it was like a '95 Corolla or something like that. So
$1,000 a
yes,
month.
and this is not like his meals were paid for because we were in the dorms. And he would still find a way to fuck off that money and get mad.
Oh, this is in college. I'm sorry.
College.
I'm thinking when you're kids.
No.
Like, what do you?
Well, I mean, we were still kids. I mean, we were 18, 19, but still, it's just like, dude, like, what are you gonna? What the fuck? Like, are you serious? So, like, that immediately comes to mind, and that's why I was like, nah, she's gonna work, and she's like, don't manufacture. She's gonna have other. So I think the important thing is she's gonna have other hardships in her life that are unique to her that we're not gonna have, and one of those things is gonna be probably a new form of bullying through social media. Through this, that, and third. And my biggest fear is the verbal bullying. That's my biggest fear, because if you throw hands with somebody who's talking shit to you like that, then they kind of win. Even if you beat the shit out of them, they made you react in a way that they wanted you to. So they have control over you. They have power over you. And it's very hard, even as a dude who had a chip on his shoulder. I'm not necessarily confrontational, but like, if certain things would set me off, it's just like even like in my head, I'll get like random acts of road rage in my head. I'm like, I hate even now. Like, now I'm a little older, so I understand.
You bad with the road rage? You're a terror on the highways?
Yeah, my wife, she always like gets mad at me because I'll always stare people down. Like, if they cut me off,
really?
I'll just go like that. Like, I won't go so far as to like flick them off or anything like that. Roll them. We're like, oh, what the fuck is wrong with you? But I'll like stare them down. She's like, dude, like, don't do that shit. Don't do that shit. I'm like, no, fuck that. But now
they knew what they did. They know what they
like,
did.
Half the time they're just like, nah, whatever. And for me, I hate that about myself, and I'm working on it. And I don't want to give people that type of energy. And that's that's one of the things that I'm working on, that I want to impress upon my child, is like, don't give those type of people your energy. Your energy, you got to protect your energy. It's far more important than you getting the short-term win. Because you throw hands at this person, principal's office, we have to take you to a different school or whatever. You fire back, that might be that. Or you go back at it back and forth and be like, don't let me get under your skin. Be comfortable. So be comfortable with who you are. Like, understand that.
Do you think that that's something that we get from martial arts? Because you said,
I think so.
Your father taught martial arts.
Yeah,
you said,
yeah.
My biological father did as well. So I grew up doing Aikido.
I think it is, right, because
it's one of those things where you're taught to avoid the fight.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
you are, but
it's
you
weird
aren't.
because that only you are, but you aren't. Like, it's like, avoid it, but when shit goes down, be ready.
And my dad, like, as great as a martial artist he was, he nuances the fee is what he didn't really get into with me. He knew that I was kind of a sickly kid growing up, so I think he was worried about my health in general. He's like, all right, this kid, I got to toughen up, and without really giving me context, right? Because that's just the way people parented back then. So I think the martial arts thing did help in a way unconsciously for me. And then when I got older, I understood, oh, okay, like, this is, because we would always have to, meditate and be like self-control, self-discipline, things like that. And I had a lot of anger. I had a lot of anger issues when I was a kid, just because of things that were going on in my life, and that did help. and which is why I want to get my kid into martial arts too. Like it sucked. This whole COVID thing fucked all my plans up because
it ruined everybody's plans.
I told wifey, man.
I just had this conversation with my wife last night.
I told wifey, man. I was just like, look, 3 years old, because that's when I started. I started martial arts when I was 3 years old. I was like, 3 years old. Kennedy's taking her ass to some Muay Thai. She's gonna get a good. She's gonna like train some Greco-Roman wrestling, some freestyle wrestling, get a good wrestling base. 8 limbs. She's gonna learn how to use all 8 of them. You know what I mean? As she gets older, and then move on from there. So COVID's fucking things up for sure. But I think being verbal and telling her, and just communicating with her and helping her understand, like, hey, this is the things that are going to affect you, is the biggest thing. And also when social media comes around, I fear, because I had my kid, kind of late. I had my kid when I was 36. So my firstborn was 36. And I was like, I'm still kind of in tune with technology. I know that I'm kind of
How old are you now?
with it. I'm 39.
Okay.
So I'm kind of like, I'm on, obviously, I'm on Instagram and stuff like that. I'm not on TikTok or anything like that. I'm not really on Twitter like that either. So I'm like, when things kind of progress, I need to make sure that I stay relevant, not just for me being the wash dad, but just understanding the new ways people socialize, or that they communicate with each other, or that they do certain things. Cause I think it's just going to be fluid over time, and making sure that I kind of keep my hand to the pulse of what's going on with communications and how kids interact. Like, I think that's going to be helpful more than anything.
How do you want to approach this? Like, because this is now something that my son is going to be 10 in January. It's a conversation that we really haven't touched on too much with my wife, just because it's kind of seemed in the distant future. But like, how do we approach this now with our kids and social media? Because we're old enough to remember not having it, but we're young enough to still be able to navigate it and understand it. Yeah. As parents. And I feel like our parents' generation just had no idea. Like, they're just getting on Facebook now, and look what happened, So, like, they've ruined it.
So,
but yeah, like, I don't know, like, I don't even know, like, if I want my kid to have a phone yet. Because he uses his grandmother's phone just to play, video games with his friends.
You're way closer
but
to
even
that,
like,
way closer.
Yeah, even that, I don't know how I feel about it. Like, as much as I want to get him a phone just so he could just have it and play his games and not have to bother everyone else. But do I have that trust yet? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not that I don't trust my kid or won't trust my kid. It's just like, fuck, man, I know how much it affects people's mental state, because even grown ass adults like take breaks from social media. So I think the important thing is, maybe if and when I do it, because damn, dude, I don't even know when I'm going to give my kid a phone, like a smartphone. You know what I mean? Like, and even that's going to be a subject of roasting, right? Like, oh, you got one of the little please don't kidnap me phones, the little SpongeBob phone or whatever the fuck, like, she's going to get roasted for that too. But I think one of the important things is understanding what social media can mean to her, right? Because I think for a lot of people in our generation, it's like the bane of our existence. We're like, oh, this stupid Instagram hoes selling this, that, and the third, or selling lifestyles. It's like, you teaching her, this is all hypothetical, right? But I think teaching her, you make social media what you want out of it, because that's what I do. Depending where I am at life and stuff like that, I kind of curate. That's the thing that keeps coming up in my head. It's like, curate your experience. So what do you want to get out of social media, right? If it's, I'm hoping it's not some sort of validation, right? I'm hoping, me, your mom.
You don't want them to base their whole existence and their whole self-confidence and
which is what you see a lot of. It's like, I'm hoping you don't get validation off of it, but if you want to see some aspirational stuff, I'm not mad at that, right? You see if you follow some athletes or something like that, or you follow some scholars or some scientists, like, that's cool. But
yeah, even if you just follow meme accounts, whatever, like, to get a laugh.
I was like, if you want it to be funny, educational, cool, but don't make it a source of validation. That's going to be my number one thing, because I think that's when people, they use it like a crutch, and that's when the social media bullying takes place. And that's when I think it gets really bad, is when people depend on it like it's a lifeline of, like, it's a source of comfort for them too. It's like, I don't want that for my kid.
No, of course not. And again, with the bullying too, like, what do we do? Like, how do we is there a way for us as parents to kind of police that a little bit, to keep an eye on it? I mean, do we stalk our kids' social media accounts? Is that really what we want to be doing? Like, it's like a Brave New World. We don't know.
So,
it's a Wild West still.
Dude, I don't. We're gonna have to keep workshopping this because I don't know.
We are.
I don't know because my boy.
Yeah.
He has two kids that are older. One is, I believe, like 12, 13. The other one, she's 21. And when she lived with him, he's just like, I'll give them their privacy, and I'll always make sure that I'm. And I think the biggest thing across the board with my friends who are good parents that have kids of different ages, the most important thing that I see, that at least by all accounts when I see them, that they're well-adjusted kids, is that communication. And he's just like, look, man,
communication between
parent and child. Like, I'll let you
Yeah.
cook, I'll let you do your own thing, but when I tell you to give me your phone, you give me your fucking phone. Like, it was more so just like, I'm gonna make sure that these fools aren't trying to like get at my daughter, but it's also like, I'm gonna trust you to be like a mini adult, right? And if something's wrong, then you tell me. Don't go through life not telling me these things, because I think that's when it gets internalized and it just compounds. So,
well, that was one of the stats I saw, is that majority of bullying goes unreported. And a lot of things with bullying is like what gets classified as bullying. Like, how many kids just feel like that's just them. That's just their life. It's not something everybody or a lot of people are dealing with.
The thing is, I also don't want to be the parent that goes to the school and be like, because that's what the kids are scared of, right? Like, how dare you let this happen? And it's just like, dude, there's so many fucking kids, and teachers are overwhelmed, or they don't care, or somewhere in between, right? It's like, I'm going to just tell my kid how to navigate, or how I navigated, and then be like, just keep an open line of communication. I'll always be open. If they say fucked up things, you can understand that I'm not going to freak out and like go over there. Now, if something like really big happens, then I'm going to go over there and be like, okay, like, what's going on here? We need to have a real thing. And I'm probably not going to just to keep my kids safe, I'm not going to get her, like, bring her with me. I'll just be like, this is what's being reported. You let me know what's going on, the action plan or whatever it is from there. But I think that even when I communicate to her, like, hey, kid, this is unfortunately a part of life. And if it comes down to it, then you defend yourself. You defend yourself verbally, but don't necessarily stoop down to their level, right? If they make fun of her for being biracial, if they make fun of her for being a girl or something like that, don't stoop to that level, but roast them back. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Don't just take it.
Don't just take it.
Stand up for yourself.
Exactly. So I think that's going to be the important thing for her, because I can't. This is one of the things too. It's like I have very, and this is not shit on teachers. I just have very little expectations of teachers handling these things.
Well, yeah, a lot of times their hands are tied by policies at the school and stuff, and just simply not seeing it. Not everything gets witnessed. It's a lot. Teachers have a lot on their plate.
Dude, they're not out there on like at recess or nutrition, whatever they call it now, like with fucking binoculars, like looking at all these kids, because like bullying's not going to really happen it might happen a little bit in the classroom, like via text or social media, but even then it's very minimal as opposed to when they're out socializing. So I think I can't, I'll make them aware of it if it comes to that, but I'm going to try my best to try to teach my kids to be like, all right, navigate these things as they come along, and I won't get involved. I'll talk to you however you want me to talk to you about it, but I won't get involved unless you ask me to. If you ask me to, then that's something different. But I want them to also be equipped, like we spoke about beforehand, to handle these things. I want them to. So I don't know if she is going to be quick with it, but I at least want her to be like, okay, I got to start sizing these kids up, or understand like, okay, something might happen. So if this person comes at me funny, like, what's the first thing I can focus on? Oh, his shoes are fucked up, or his haircut's fucked up. And be like, Ray Charles gave you your lineup. Like, what the fuck are you doing with that? Like Stephen A. Smith hairline, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, just stuff like that. Like, I think that can be at least focal points, right? The quick wittedness, they just kind of have to learn on their own. But then, like, focal points of what they can focus on roasting somebody for, like.
We're gonna have to be careful with that, because next the kid's gonna get in trouble for like cursing at school or something. And it's like, apparently your daughter called another child a cottage cheese chest ass motherfucker.
Like, I'm like, and that's the thing too. Like, I cuss around my kid, and she actually picks up on it sometimes. But she also knows now, given my tone of voice, that she's like, oh shit, that's an adult word. So she even knows now that like, okay, like, this is probably not the best thing for me to do, but it's like, I can't do it. Like, cussing is so much part of my vernacular that I'm like, I cannot shake it. I can be better about it. I can code switch, but then I don't even sound like dad to her. You know what I mean? So when I have to consciously not cuss, I sound like a completely different person. So I'm just like, oh, pip pip cheerio. Like, I don't want to be like that,
Apparently, you're British when you're not cussing.
Just like, I don't know, man. I just go to a different place. I go in a different mindset. But I think that
my son knows. Yeah. He knows. Like, listen, I know that's an adult word, but sometimes, like, if I say something, he'll be like, "Dad, that's a bad word." And I'm like, "Bro, shut the fuck up! Come on, like, what are you doing? Like, I can say it, okay? And I can say it, and you can't say it. Yeah,
I'm the parent here.
We had over the weekend. He was like, we should stay up all night. I was like, all right, we could do that. It's Saturday, so it was just me and him. We stayed up all night playing Nintendo, watching anime and stuff. And he was saying something, like, one of the animes. We watched My Hero Academia, and there's one character who's always saying, "Damn, you bastard!" What that the character Bakugo, and he was like, "I can't say that, right?" And I look around, I'm making sure it's just us awake, and I said, "You know what? Listen, just for tonight, just between you and me, you can say it tonight." He's like, "But I better not hear it any other time." He's like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Can you follow those rules?" He goes, "Yeah." Okay. And I can see, like, he's still too afraid to say it.
Yeah. I'm cool with that, though. I remember seeing an Instagram video, and this kid's getting bullied by his older brother. I had to find it. Once I find it, I'll send it to you. It was on one of those meme accounts where this kid was just getting bullied relentlessly by his older brother, who's much bigger than him, and like took his toy and like dipped, just fucking boned out. But it was just like, how you feel? And like walked out of the room like gloating. And the kid turns to his dad. He's like, "Dad, can I cuss?" And the dad's not doing anything, which is kind of fucked up. But also maybe he's just like, let's toughen this kid up. I don't know. But
I worked the double. Leave me alone.
Yeah, he's just like, yeah, go ahead. And then the kid turns around. He's like, "Fuck you, Jack!" Like, hella loud. I was like, under those circumstances, I'll allow it.
I get it.
Yeah, I get it. I'll allow it. You ask for permission, so long as you understand it's adult stuff. You can use it on occasion. But yeah, verbal. I think easing kids into the major things, like easing them into what bullying is like from a verbal and like and physical standpoint, and being able to defend yourself, and even if you get caught for it, right, understanding that you might not have necessarily done anything wrong, but you will be disciplined for that too. Yeah, right, because you're,
like, even though you were still morally in the right, there are still going to be consequences.
Exactly. And just because it's right, don't make it technically legal, So I think those things, the social media aspect, man, we're still gonna have to workshop that out. But I think just because I tell my friends that now, like, I curate my experience depending where I'm at.
It is what you make it.
Dude, there's a lot of times where I'll unfollow friends because they're so fucking negative, or they'll
I do too. Absolutely.
Try to put out a lifestyle that isn't theirs. I'm like, the fuck out of here. I know you're not really doing this shit, or I'll even unfollow like sneaker accounts or like style accounts because I'm like, that's not where I want to be right now. I got to stack my money a little bit and then follow them later. Like, just always being fluid and knowing you can make your feed whatever you want it, but don't make it a source of validation. I think that's the most important thing when it comes to battling bullying for now, I think, right? Just not being so reliant on it that you're defined by who you are on social media. Like, just that thing, I think, is the most important from the verbal standpoint. But
absolutely. Well, listen, we're up against the clock right now. I kind of got a hard out. The kid's gonna come in here. He does his online school in the studio.
No worries, man.
He starts in a few minutes. But listen, man, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me again.
Man,
it's a good one.
Thank you for coming through. Trust when I'm gonna full court press you when it's time for me to get my own thing going. I'm on the works with it now.
Let me know, man. I actually have more fun doing other people's shows because it's less pressure on me. Yeah, and I just get to hang out and bullshit.
Yeah, don't worry. I'll be in touch soon, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Beautiful.
We'll link up soon, man.
That's it. That's the episode. Big thanks to Retro. Sorry for the audio cutting out, but having a lot of software issues. And hopefully I'll get that fixed. And I have a lot of gas I don't know why. I'm getting old and fat. But anyway, big shout out to Retro. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for coming in and chatting with us. Doing this on a Wednesday. So you guys stay tuned for more episodes. This is 89, so we're coming up on 100. We got to figure out something cool to do for that one. As usual, you know where to find us. APodAmongstMen on Instagram and Twitter. Search our YouTube channel, APodAmongstMen. If you're watching this, you're there right now because it's the only place to find it. And make sure you listen to us on Spotify. Follow us.
iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Amazon Podcasts, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts, we are there. So, until next week, peace.